Here's something cool. My contractor is using Slack for all the stuff. So all the
Get
documents
out of here.
we're just passing back and forth in Slack. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Does he have like different channels for different clients maybe or something?
Yeah.
Or just
Yep.
wow.
Yeah. So
What's
like
the name of your channel?
8,400 rump residents.
Okay.
I guess something, I don't know. But so like they send a design, and then I'll just take it in the Surface, and I'll just draw on it and draw my changes, and then I'll just send it back, and then we're just been going back and forth. So they just actually sent some more changes.
See, this would read like a Microsoft commercial script, except for the fact that you said the word Slack instead of Microsoft Teams. So can you go repeat that exact same thing, except a Microsoft?
No. But here's the funny thing, that they're using Excel for like all the costing stuff that I need to know, but they're not putting formulas in Excel.
Oh, they're.
So I'm going through and like, wait, you said this is a quantity of 3 at $100, and you said it's 500. That's not correct. So one of those numbers is wrong.
Fudge factor. It's the sub-Miami-Dade construction tax.
Oh, the amount of percentage I'm paying him, it covers all that. I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's a quarter after. The big hand is on the 15. The little hand is all over the place, depending on where you are. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Cool. John asks a question that, is a stumper. Man, John says, Microsoft released 2017 Cumulative Update 10 yesterday. I tried to look through the hotfixes included, but I don't see any reference to the brand new security hotfix they just put out. How can we tell if CU10 includes the security hotfix or not? None of us know. For those of you only listening to the podcast, we're all doing various interpretive dance here.
Yeah, you have to install it to find out what's in it.
Yeah, and then you would even have to know how to trigger whatever the cumulative update or whatever the GDR hotfix was, how to trigger whatever thing it's doing in order to improve your security. It is what we call disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Microsoft's documentation is supposed to be open source, so you could maybe ask them to improve upon that.
Or you could submit 2 pull requests. You could submit one pull request that says it has the security fix and one that says it doesn't, and see which one they accept.
Yeah. Play both sides of that coin.
You don't ever do that in my code base, Brent. Ozar, please, you don't ever get to do that.
Oh, God. I check in some pretty crappy pull requests, I will say that. Richie found some of my terrible SQL the other day, and he's like, Brent, this can't possibly be right.
I'm not saying I spent all afternoon fixing that yesterday. I'm not saying that at all. None whatsoever. But the unit test passed, and that's the important thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a man who has eaten a $1,000 pizza by telling people to make their queries sargable using upper in a where. That's where we're at.
You know what? It wasn't. No, even worse. I'll raise you more than that. I'll raise your $1,000 pizza over that. It wasn't in the where clause. It was in a join.
It was in a join. It totally was in a join.
I was uppercasing 2 sides of a join. And, of course, Richie, God bless him, has to keep the poker face when he comes in and asks me, hey, Brent, can you tell me a little bit about what's going on?
No, I'm pretty sure it's Brent Ozar's fault. Look at this line. And then he goes, we need this. And I'm like, okay. And I start working some derived table magic and make it look like Frankenstein's query.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not pleasant.
But it went from like a minute 20 with this one particular set of data, and it went to like 2 seconds. And I'm like, okay, and we'll call this one done.
Yeah. On a related basis, Nick also asked, he says, it seems like the quality's been going down on cumulative updates lately. We saw the ones recently where they pushed out a cumulative update and then rolled it back for the security fix, pushed out again another change and rolled it back. Do you have any comments on that? My thoughts is, yeah, it does seem like the monthly cadence for patches is a little bit more than SQL Server can handle right now, or a little bit more than Microsoft's testing seems to be able to handle right now. I don't blame them. It's hard. Yeah. There's a huge surface area to cover, but I have a much lower confidence level in cumulative updates than I used to have.
Yeah, and Oh, go ahead.
We're a small shop, right? I mean, we just have a code base that we started a year and a half ago, and I've got a whole slew of unit tests, and it goes through, and yet just this last week alone, I go and put a fix in, and then something else breaks, and everything passed, everything looks great, but something else that we didn't consider came up and fixed. So imagine something, a code base, a freaking SQL Server that's been around for 30 years, and how you would test all the permutations of all the crazy stuff that we see out in the wild. Ooh, that's really, really hard, especially when you're trying to pump these things out as quickly as possible. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, we do a monthly release of the first responder kit, but thankfully the change churn is a lot smaller. I'm not saying that everything always goes well 100% of the time. There's obviously some craziness out there in the world that we can't account for either. But I like to do some due diligence testing and at least make sure that everything compiles without too much red text. It's always a good sign.
Are you guys hearing all that noise in the background? Does everyone want No? Oh,
No.
good. My audio is my parents are getting a screen-in pool, and they're installing it right now, so they're drilling all over the place.
Wow, nice. Are they using that with your rent money? They're taking your rent money and putting it towards it.
Oh, no, my rent money's still going to my house, and my mortgage I still have to pay, even though we're not living there.
Tammy asks, what are some reasons not to use Always Encrypted?
I guess the question for me would be, what are the reasons you should use Always Encrypted?
What do you need to encrypt? What are you going after? Do your queries need to search encrypted things?
Mm-hmm.
These are all questions that I would want to ask up front.
Do you use linked servers or replication with it too? Because that can throw some monkey wrenches in your ability to replicate that data from one place to another and decrypt it on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you have to restore stuff to restore, do refreshes and stuff, and then you have to deal with whatever certificates moving those things around. Obviously security makes things more complicated. I know from the fact that last week I entered an RSA token roughly 3,000 times, but another one. Refresh, new one. But yeah, obviously security makes things far more complicated. If you want reasons not to use it, because it makes your life more complicated. If you want reasons to use it, because it probably may not get you fired. Having some.
And I know a lot of shops that needed encryption, and they already rolled it in the app layer before SQL 2016 came out, or when it was still Enterprise Edition only. So if you already needed it.
What's that plugin, NetLib, that does the TDE?
Yeah, it's NetLib Encryptionizer, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the projects I've worked on, they just encrypted the data that needed to be encrypted as opposed to just kind of doing everything. And with TDE and of course, you don't lose the cert. There's a lot of things that you could really screw up on some of that stuff.
Yeah. Lee says, thank you all for the first responder kit and the other information scripts you share. I'm being given new servers that the vendors are abandoning to use. So all these things help me get a handle on the new to me servers and fix the weirdness of vendor installs. You're welcome. Erik busts his hump on that. Especially us. Pablo asks, what influences SQL Server to choose between a hash match and a nested loops join? Identical dev and prod servers are showing this difference, and one query took 5 minutes on one side and 2 hours on the other side.
Boy, there are so many things that could be different between dev and prod. That's a terrifying question. I would start looking at the plans themselves. Aside from just looking at the join type, look at how many rows we're expecting from one place to another. Beyond that, look at what indexes are getting used. So cardinality estimation is going to be one. Indexes in use are going to be one. Obviously, there are some join strategies that work better with index data, and where hash joins can hash joins can excel with unindexed data because it's going to hash all the values anyway. Memory is another big one. Available memory. If SQL Server is like, no, you know what, we're just not going to get good enough chunk of memory to do this hash join, I am going to go with this nested loops join. So there's all sorts of strange considerations. So there's a lot to look at for you, young man.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, the memory one's a good one. I forget about that. That's good. Gordon says, this isn't really a replication question. Gordon, you're pushing the limits. Gordon says, I'm looking at migrating an on-premises environment, including merge replication, up to Azure SQL DB. Would SQL Data Sync be a replacement for the replication?
Do they have that in AWS with Postgres? I'm confused.
Yeah, merge replication. My question would be, what are you doing merge replication for? If you're doing it for high availability between two places, then Azure SQL DB kind of replaces that. If you're doing it to let people like change stuff on premises and change stuff up in the cloud and keep it in sync between the two, I would not do that. I don't have any good points I would do. Like, so many times I see people doing merge replication and they're doing it between two shoe boxes, or like one box can't keep up with the load, and I look and it's a VM with 4 cores and a VM with 3 cores, and they're like, we had to scale across separate boxes. I'm like, maybe you scale up a little bit. Steve asks, he says, Constant Care sent me a poison weights email. Can you talk about poison weights a little?
Which one?
I should go look at Steve's data. Hold on, let's see.
Let's pause for a moment.
Yeah, we have, what, 3 poison weights warnings in Constant Care now?
We do, so let's see. He has, the one he's getting is, I don't see poison weights in that one. Where on earth did this, where is he getting, which poison weight is he getting? Steve, where are you? Steve, tell us about the one you're actually getting.
Steve, you've confounded us.
Yeah, I'm going in and looking to see. Oh, resource semaphore. Okay, so we got one on resource semaphore.
Ooh, you've got some memory issues. More specifically, when SQL Server goes to run queries, it has these queues of memory that it sticks them in. And when certain queues fill up, they're prioritized and they will hold on to, and other queries have to wait for those queries to finish and give up their memory so that they can run. When you run into that, you've got resource semaphore. So it's a memory weight, and it's caused by a mix of queries asking for large memory grants and queries asking for any memory grants and getting prioritized. So usually what you want to start doing is, if you're on a version of SQL Server that supports it, maybe Brent can tell me from the magical data. If you're on like 2016 or 17 or 2014 with a service pack, or 2012 SP3 or something, you can start looking at memory grants. You can use SP Blitz Cache, and you can sort by memory grant, and you can start looking at what queries are using a lot of memory. But the kind of downside to this is, if you're hitting resource semaphore weights, you are most likely going to be hitting some cleared plan cache issues. So like when SQL Server goes to use memory for a query, if you are running out of it, like instance-wide, like you don't have enough memory to cache your data, and then you don't have enough memory to also, run these queries, that memory has to come from somewhere. The stuff that gets cleared out when a query needs memory is the plan cache and the buffer pool. One query can ask for, by default, up to about 25% of max server memory, and queries as a whole can actually take just about 75% of your server memory running all at once. So you could be clearing out a significant amount of, plan cache and buffer pool data to run these big queries. So take a look, if you can, run Blitz Cache, figure out what's big by memory grant, if you're on a version that supports it, and start looking at those. Otherwise, you'd have to be stuck running some crappy DMV queries to just constantly look at what's running in the memory grants there.
And you also don't take biblical action based on what comes out of this SP Blitz Cache just the first time you run it. Because remember, like you said, maybe your memory's been cleared out, or parts of your buffer pool, plan cache have been cleared out. Run this a few times over the course of several days, like just to get a rough idea of which plans are in there recently.
And to kind of get a feel for that, if Brent, you don't mind scrolling down a little bit in the second window, there will be a little bit of information about what's in your plan cache. So it'll tell you how many plans you have and what percentage of them were created over different chunks of time. So if it's like a lot of plans getting created in the last hour or 4 hours, then obviously you have less plan cache stability than you'd want to start making those big decisions based on.
Good point. Let's see, next up is Juan, I believe it is, says, how can I grant users without sysadmin roles the rights to modify agent jobs that are owned by SA? So like they want to play around with agent jobs. but not give people SA.
Ooh, I don't know that you can.
I want to say that isn't there a role for I'm in the wrong place, of course. I think there's a server level role for agent stuff. I could have swore there was.
I don't know, but if you're running into the situation where you have so many people who need to mess with agent jobs, I would just want to give them an agent job server for themselves that they can just go and do whatever to their heart's content. That doesn't make them SA or doesn't promote them, beyond the point that you would be comfortable with on the prod server.
I adore that so much.
Can you do that with SQL Server Express, or do you actually need standard?
Well, Express doesn't have agent.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Diabolical.
Stupid Express.
Yeah. Samantha, who shares the name of one of my favorite Big Brother people this season, Samantha asks, have any of y'all ever reached a point in your career where you doubted if it was the right path for you? There are days where I feel like a rock star, and there are days when I wonder how the hell I got here. Does anyone else feel that way? I should have been a geologist. Rocks don't change this fast. Ooh, when was the last time? Yeah, I'm sure it's happened to all of us. When was the last time it happened to you guys where you were like, damn path?
Career path? I don't know. I think once I kind of got into SQL Server, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Whether it's what I always want to do in my life is another story, but like I'm comfortable with it as a career path now. I like the rate of change. It's nice having new stuff to look forward to and learn about. I have to be honest. If SQL Server is going to continue like the every 2 years thing that they were on, or even longer stretches earlier, I think I would get bored because you sit there and you stare at the same product for however long. I'm sick of 2008 and 2008 R2. I can't wait for those to go away.
Well, but to be fair, you don't look at the whole product. You look at especially the engine. Right? I mean, you're not SSIS or anything else on top of that. Yeah.
I would be really bored if I was doing that.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely, yeah.
I hit it big time when I was on Richie's track. When I was a developer in the late 90s, early 2000s, I hit it. I was like, I am on the complete wrong track. I suck at learning languages. I love learning. I suck at learning languages. It's like syntaxes that are different between platforms. And the more that I sat on the developer track, I'm like, I'm never going to get better at this. I don't enjoy it. So I'm going to go somewhere where I still have to learn, but the language doesn't change. Like SQL has been essentially the same for forever. So I totally felt that way, and that's when I switched over to databases full time.
Yeah, I get.
So I think I was a little different because I started off as a developer. I kind of always knew I wanted to be a developer when I kind of got to college. I was going to do electrical engineering and then psychology, and I kind of fell into the computer thing, and I'm like, writing software, that's my jam. And then I kind of moved up in the company I was in, where I was a senior, and then they made me a manager, and then I was doing project management stuff and, doing all this other, manages type stuff. I did that for about 5 years, and then I'm like, I'm not happy. I don't really like what I'm doing. I don't really like dealing with some of these people and having to listen to what they think the problem is. That's not the problem, and all this other stuff. And when I went back to development, I was so thrilled. And I consider working with SQL Server and doing database development. That's still development in my head. But man, yeah, I strayed from my path, and I was just so miserable. It was so awful.
I think it's also, I was just talking to a client the other day about this. There's never been a better time, if you want to leave database administration, there's never been a better time to go down all kinds of different tracks. Same thing with developer. I mean, like, the whole world is open. There's all kinds of different data jobs that you can go pursue if you want to. I don't want people to think that the DBA job is dead, that the developer job is dead, that database development is dead, anything like that. These careers are hugely strong, but if you find out that it's not for you, there's never been a better time to go look at what else is happening in your organization and go, how could I spend more of my free time doing that so that the next full-time position I get is only doing that piece instead of doing the pieces. And when you write your resume, I know a lot of folks will put, one page of qualifications of all the things that they do that they've done in the past, and 3/4 of them they hate doing. It just like burns their soul to have to deal with that stuff. I'm like, don't put it on your resume. Don't put linked server troubleshooting, on the front page of your resume if that's something that you hate.
All right, so I'm taking VB3 off my resume right now.
Bad news, it's now supported in serverless. We're going to move exclusively to Visual Basic.
In Access 2.0.
And let's see, Samantha says, my manager wants to make me a supervisor now. I haven't even reached the pinnacle of my career yet. Well, I hope not. I hope none of us have reached the pinnacle of their career yet. And says, I love IT, I love DBA, I've hit a crossroad. Okay, so that I really can't speak to because I went down that path. I thought that there was a ceiling limit on database administration, and when my manager said, do you want to lead the team, I was like, sure, management, why not? I hated management. I suck at management, as all of our employees can tell you. I am herp-a-derp completely at management. It is a totally different skill set than technical, and I have huge respect for people who are good at management, people who can manage other people, drive them to work to a particular goal or whatever. And if you don't like it, don't. There are so many places that you can go technically without having to manage people.
Yeah, I think I was a little different from your experience, Brent, where I actually did it. I was good at it. I delivered the largest project that the company had ever even approached. But what I didn't like was having to deal with middle management because there's such a power struggle. Dealing with the CIO and CEOs, they're phenomenal. They're great people. They want things to get done. Dealing with the people that actually get the work done, the lower level workers, they're great because they just want to get the work done. And then you get these power struggles within middle management, and I moved into middle management, and it was awful. I mean, people were backstabbing me, and they were backstabbing each other, and they're all jockeying to get upper level stuff, and I'm like, I just want to get this project done. What do you guys know? This is terrible. This is awful. We're supposed to be working as a team, right? I did a trust fall thing, and you caught me, and you were supposed to be a team. And it's not the way some organizations work. So I guess if you think that you'd be good at it and it's interesting you, then go for it, try it out. Maybe you could do it on a trial basis. But if it's something like I don't know, maybe not, I kind of like what I'm doing now, then hang back.
To this day, they sabotage Richie's audio.
Again?
They just crawl in and.
Let's see. Joseph says, can y'all give a sentence or two about how CX packet weights in SQL Server 2016 Service Pack 2 can be caused by bad query estimates? Let me rephrase it. How can bad estimates cause CX packet weights?
I don't necessarily think that it's a bad estimate thing. I think that it's a bad distribution thing. So usually when I see CX packet weights that are like bad, it's for one of a few reasons. Either the CPUs are just tanked and they can't talk to each other fast enough, so CX packet ramps up because you have just threads that are sitting there like saying, I need to talk to you, but I can't talk to you yet. They're getting scheduler yielded all over the place. They're in like balanced power mode or something, and they're just not running up at full speed. They're running like half or like 75% speed, so they're not talking to each other as quickly as they should be. And then finally, there's just when parallelism is skewed all over the place. And I wrote a blog post about it recently where you can see how CX consumer weight, how that will trigger bad CX consumer weights. Query that ran for 2 days with one thread getting like bajillions of rows. So that's really where I see that's really where I see it going. I don't think we say like a bad estimate. Maybe if you like SQL Server really overestimates the number of rows that are going to come out of something and decides to use a parallel plan instead of a serial plan, then maybe because that would potentially lead to the kind of skew that I'm talking about, where like one value or one set of values ends up like just kind of like demolishing one thread, and all the other threads are sitting around doing absolutely nothing, or close to nothing. So that's what I check. The only thing is that stuff isn't in like cached plans or anything that I could tell you anything useful about, or like how to go find it. It's something that you really have to catch in action. You have to like narrow it down to which plans are generating that kind of rotten CX packet, and then go troubleshoot them one by one.
Joe asks, similar to a previous question, why would we not want to use row or page compression? It seems like a no-brainer. Go ahead.
It's like heavily modified tables, I think, have issues with compression. And I can't remember like the ins and outs of it because it's been a long time since I thought about row and page compression like in depth. But it's like I think like if it's like not a heap and you insert the data to it, then compression is delayed or something, or compression doesn't kick in until you rebuild or something weird, or like I don't know, there's something odd about it. Like Richie Shea wrote amazing blog posts about it 10 years ago that I
Yeah, and it's every time somebody asks us that, we have to still go back to the books. And it was something. There's also something to do with if the data set already fits in memory and you just incur extra CPU on crunching it. That was another one.
You know what I always hated about it is that like when like I was just like cool, like data compression, we'll use this stuff, we'll compress stuff, and then like maybe we'll do better with like memory usage, but it's not. It's like as soon as you read that stuff from disk, it's uncompressed, and you need the same amount of memory to manage the uncompressed data. And it's like, I really wanted that to be a thing.
Plus, these days, a lot of times when people are asking about compression, there's two other things. One was the off-row data, that it doesn't compress off-row data, so if you have big strings. But the other, these days, when people ask about compression, I'm usually like, well, haven't you checked out Column Store? If you really want amazing compression, that seems to be a better way to do it, with the kind of data that people expect to compress.
Yeah. And especially the kind of indexes that people are making when they want the data compression, with these big honking indexes with like 1 billion includes and key columns everywhere, and it's never anything pretty. It's never for a pretty reason that people are like, maybe we'll just compress a few things. It's always some big, awful, ugly table that is full of giant columns. You're just like, no, you need to.
Let's see, next, Jeremy asks, we're running always-on availability groups and we have a file share witness. The policy default is that if the resource fails, try to restart a max one time in 15 minutes. What do you recommend? I don't think we've ever told anyone to change that. I don't think I've even ever looked at it. But the two people I would ask are either Edwin Sarmiento, who teaches availability groups classes for us, Edwin Sarmiento, or Alan Hirt, H-I-R-T. Who has a book coming out any day now about SQL Server availability groups, and he may even cover it in there. Steven says, any suggestions for tracking down the cause of this error? SQL Server failed to connect with error code, blah, 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 to spawn a thread to process a new login or connection.
Yeah, baby, you got THREADPOOL. Oh. You ran out of worker threads.
And where would you go troubleshooting that?
Well, let's see. That's a tough one to catch, right? Because it's either happening and hitting F5 is really difficult, or it's not happening and it doesn't look like anything of the sort is going on. This is where a monitoring tool, well, actually no, because monitoring tools blank out for that too. Monitoring tools don't have threads. So this is where the remote DAC comes in really handy, is because I would pay attention to when you see this in the error log. I would pay attention to your wait stats. So if you see this THREADPOOL wait inching up, then you need to have the remote DAC turned on unless you're connecting locally. So but hopefully you're not RDPing into a server with THREADPOOL issues and running Management Studio and doing other stuff. So I'm going to assume that you're a good person and you're running remote SSMS to get into the server. Turn on the remote DAC. Get in there, use like SP Blitz2 or SP who is active, hit F5 when things start to go south, or if you notice things getting weird, and you'll be able to catch all the THREADPOOL goodness in action. THREADPOOL is, like I said, running out of worker threads. Don't try to adjust the max worker thread sys.configuration option, because what that does is basically just picture like 30 kids screaming in a classroom. If you turn that up, you just add more screaming kids to the classroom. It might fix a thread pool, but your CPUs are now just overwhelmed with screaming kids. So don't do that. It really comes down to usually figuring out if the number of CPUs you have is good for your workload, which if you're hitting thread pool, it most likely isn't. And then of course tuning queries and indexes to prevent the kind of awful blocking scenarios that go on, because typically when we see folks hitting thread pool issues, it's a lot of parallel queries starting up, running, reserving threads, and getting blocked. And those threads don't get given back, right? Those threads are reserved for those queries until the queries are done with them. So you just have all these queries piling up, reserving threads, blocked, sitting there doing nothing. The server might look bored too, right? Because it's not doing anything. But anyway, that's where I'd look. Went on
screaming kids.
Sorry.
I don't know that we're ever going to beat that analogy. A group of screaming kids, just adding more screaming kids to the room. That's fantastic.
That's all it is. It's awful.
Then the last question we'll take for today, Darshan asks, for reporting purposes, we created a table and we dumped data into it so users can query their Power BI reports with it. Now the table is huge, so what would be the ideal solution to move it? The thing I would say is define what huge is, because for the rest of your life, you're always going to be working with the largest table you've ever worked with. Generally, when they talk about a very large database, a VLDB, the general standard is 1 billion rows in one table or 1 terabytes worth of data. So when you say huge, generally, if you're talking over a billion rows in it, he says, should I think about moving it to Azure SQL DW? You could, that's certainly, there's all kinds of things that you can think of that point architecturally, but when you come to the point where you're thinking about a different database platform or different, back end for reporting, then I would stop to think about bringing somebody in who's done it before, and that's not a sales pitch for us, because we don't do data warehouse architecture either. But you're getting ready to make a decision that will haunt you for the next 5 years or more. Bring in a specialist on the platform that you're thinking about working with. Just because if you only read books online, every one of them looks like it can handle huge data sets. You want to find somebody who's done it and found the gotchas.
Yeah, to add on to that, I worked for consulted with a company that brought in Teradata, and they spent millions on this server, millions, and then things weren't performant, and they're supposed to be fast, but because of the way they architected the data, it wasn't. There you go.
Yeah, if you're on a version that supports it, I would want to look at column store for that very big table just to see if it continues being very big. Because it sounds like if you have that kind of table where folks is dumping lots of stuff in, that's not going to be a long table, it's going to be a wide table because there's like all sorts of dumb, badly named columns in there. So I would want to look at column store, either clustered or non-clustered, because especially because you're saying Azure SQL DW, those are like pretty much your only options once you get up there. So if you want a preview of how things might look there, then trying column store on-prem if you're available would most likely be a good way to test that out.
So, and for the record, Brent, Constant Care now has over 1 billion rows in one table. So, very large database.
What kind of compression are you using?
Yeah. What's that? I've never heard of
it. And I can't pull any of them down with Power BI. It's so funny, Power BI, all the ads are like, just connect in and get all the data. Oh, that is not how it works.
Not anymore.
All right, well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week, and we'll see y'all next week on Office Hours.